What's up guys, my name is Ace and welcome back to The Breakdown, the series where I analyze gameplay to help you improve. In today's episode we're going to be analyzing a team deathmatch gameplay on Biolab from Dutson_X. Let's get into it. Alright, let's start it off by having a look at the class that he decided to use. He's using the AK-12 Wrecker with the foregrip, suppressor, and extended mags. This is definitely a good setup. Only thing that I would change after sort of skimming through this gameplay is I would likely put a quick draw grip on instead of the foregrip. The AK-12 has great accuracy on its own. The foregrip does help, don't get me wrong there, but I feel like with your playstyle, I feel like the quick draw grip would have helped you a little bit more. But in all honesty, these three attachments are great on the AK-12. Nothing really wrong here. As for perks, we have Lightweight, Blind Eye, and Hardline, and this is where I'm seeing a bit of an issue, at least for me and my personal tastes for a class. I really feel like you should have Blast Suppressor on this class. That's just my opinion, but I feel like after watching a gameplay, you didn't really use the Exo Shield at all, I don't really remember, but we will find out. And then the Exo Launcher, using a frag grenade in Team Deathmatch really isn't going to do you much good. And I think Blast Suppressor would be far better for you than having the Exo ability as well as your Exo Launcher. Moving on to the score streaks, we have the UAV with extra time, nothing wrong with that. Bombing run with no modules attached, that's just how I like to run it and I highly recommend that. And then we have the Paladin, and this one has the Sleight of Hand module on it. Now, I don't really recommend this for Team Deathmatch unless you're a super confident player because that's an 11 kill streak in Team Deathmatch. It's really not likely that you're going to be earning that Paladin in a game of Team Deathmatch, at least not very often. It might be like 1 in 10 games or something along those lines. But I feel like it's kind of a waste of a spot for you because even when you do earn a Paladin eventually, I find it doesn't get very many kills, at least at this current point in time. I hope they will buff it in the future or something will change in the future with score streaks. But for me, I find Paladins are not very useful. And 11 kill streak in Team Deathmatch is not likely. Okay, so we're starting off with the opening rush. He decides to go to the right hand side of the map, and right here he sees an enemy, and his enemy pretty clearly sees him as well and takes cover behind those blue crates. What would you do in this particular situation if you were him? Would you try and wait him out and just stay aiming down sight and wait for him to poke his head out? Or would you rush him like crazy, maybe jump over the top with your Exo ability and just get really aggressive with him? Personally, I would sit back and wait for him. The reason for this is he's using the AK-12. The AK-12 excels at this range. Once you get into closer range, the AK-12 is outclassed by almost every popular gun in the game. So it's outclassed by the BAL, it's outclassed by all of the SMGs, and it's outclassed by the HBRA. Those are the most commonly used guns right now in this game's life cycle. So I would stay back in this situation and play to the advantages of my gun. Instead, he decides to rush, and not only rush, but rush in the open. If I was going to push and be a little bit impatient with him, I would have pushed a little bit to the left-hand side and put some cover between me and him as I'm pushing up towards him, but instead he pushes right out into the open, he gets caught sprinting, and he gets killed. Now, as he spawns back in, he heads right back towards that guy, and now he has the advantage because he's at a longer range against a BAL. One thing I noticed with him is his sensitivity is very high. He's able to control his sensitivity quite well, but there are a few situations where I feel like his higher sensitivity causes him to miss a few shots and even miss a couple kills that he should have had. So right there, he played that very well, but you'll notice his aim was kind of all over the place against that guy in that gunfight. And if he had a little bit of a lower sensitivity, he probably would have gotten that kill a whole lot faster. Now right here, I like that he jumps up onto the roof because now he's playing to the strengths of his gun. He's locking down a longer line of sight. Now unfortunately, he didn't see the guy in the doorway as he jumped up. I just caught a glimpse of him like the second time I watched this, so I wouldn't have caught it the first time. But that guy did get on his flank, and it happens. One thing I would have done a little bit differently though is reacted differently to being shot by that guy from behind. You'll notice when he got shot, all he did was turn to see what was shooting him. This game, you have to use your mobility as much as possible to your advantage. Instead of just turning, he could have jumped, he could have dashed, he could have done something to make himself a really hard target to hit. while analyzing where that threat is and what is going on. It will almost always keep you alive for longer, so if he would have dashed, he might have had a chance to challenge that guy. So skipping ahead just a little bit, he comes into this room and he notices there are actually 3 enemies over here. He kills one and he starts challenging the other ones, but those enemies have a clear advantage because they have the cover of the stairs. They can kind of head glitch over the stairs, whereas he has no cover at all. So I liked how he kind of got himself out of that situation, took a little bit of a breath, and then went back into the situation with a little bit more confidence. He didn't manage to get any more kills, but he also managed to stay alive, and his enemies had the advantage, so I'd say that's a good thing. Now right here is something I really like that he does. He has good map awareness. It's very likely, because on his mini-map there's no teammates over there, it's very likely that there could be enemies in that direction. So I like that he shot those canisters and blew them up. He didn't get any kills with it, but good map awareness nonetheless. Now, as he pushes over here, this is kind of a funny situation. He starts shooting at this enemy, then decides, maybe I want to shoot the canister, and then he goes back to shooting the enemy. He should have just committed to either shooting the canister originally or the enemy. He shouldn't have made that adjustment halfway through that gunfight. It could have gone very bad for him if his enemy was paying a little bit more attention. So as he pushes into this room here and gets a kill and starts challenging this gunfight, I like that he drop shots in this particular gunfight. The reason for that is his enemy had that piece of cover, so his enemy had the advantage. By drop shotting, he now minimizes the target that his enemy has on him, and he's kind of evened the odds out in an otherwise uneven gunfight. So it didn't actually get him a kill, but it was still a great move. One thing that I'm noticing with his gameplay as I'm watching it right now is he's jumping and boosting around like crazy. And this is something I don't recommend if you aren't using Blast Suppressor on your class. Every time he moves and uses one of his exo movements, he's popping up on the enemy's minimap and they can locate where he is. So if you aren't going to run Blast Suppressor, go easy on those boost jumps. So skipping ahead just a tiny bit again, he gets a nice kill right here, and one thing that he does here is he pushes towards the middle of the map, and he has no team support in the middle of the map. This is something I don't recommend doing because he's now exposing himself to at least three directions where enemies could very likely be, and you'll notice he doesn't quite know which direction to look and which way the enemies are going to be coming from. It doesn't matter how good your gun skill is, if there's 3 different directions that enemies could be coming from, you aren't going to be able to effectively cover all 3. So stay with or somewhere near your teammates and have a little bit of team support with you. In this situation right here, he starts shooting at this enemy, doesn't quite finish his kill, and he immediately goes to chase his enemy by mantling up here. Do you guys think this was a good idea? Because I personally don't. I was kind of cringing the first time I watched this. The reason for this is he alerted his enemy to his position, and then he just immediately chased and put himself at a disadvantage by mantling up like this. As you can see right now, he is useless. His gun is down, he's mantling up. He can't do anything if the enemy decides to turn around and start shooting him, which is what actually happens, and he ends up getting taken out for obvious reasons. Personally, I think he would have been better off either waiting for his enemy to try and challenge him again, like just playing it patient, cutting his losses there, and accepting that he missed his shots, or he could have gone for the double jump without mantling and tried to shoot his enemy while he was in midair. At least then he would have had his ability to use his gun, and he would have had a better chance in that gunfight. Now right here, great awareness of the lines of sight on this map. That's a great line of sight to pick people off that are on that A flag area, because they don't have any cover and you have that great little head glitch over top. Now right here, he's getting way too aggressive with the AK-12. This is not the range that you want to be challenging people in with this particular gun. So skipping ahead again, this is something I really wanted to point out. As he comes around this corner, he's checking this roof for enemies. Now it is smart to check that roof for enemies, but we have a big issue right here. You'll notice he didn't check inside this building first. He went straight to the roof and he's aiming down sight. Do you notice an issue with that? His gun is up and he can't see anything inside that building. So he didn't clear that building and make sure there wasn't an enemy sitting in the building with a sniper rifle aiming towards him, or just any enemies at all. He's blocking that completely with his gun and he's only focusing on the rooftop. So good awareness, but bad execution. It turns out there weren't any enemies in that building, so it really wasn't a big deal, but it could have been a big deal. And here I want to point out again, he's being way too aggressive with the AK-12. He's getting way too close to his enemies with the AK-12. Now he was able to sort of compensate for that with his superior gun skill. He does have great gun skill, as you can see. He's drop shotting in gunfights. He's using his high sensitivity to his advantage. and he was able to win 2 gunfights before dying. But why make it harder for yourself when you could play to the strengths of your weapon? He would have been much better off making that move with an SMG or a BAL or even the HBR, but instead he makes that move with the AK-12, which isn't ideal. So that's going to wrap it up for today's episode of The Breakdown. The number one thing I want you to take away from this episode is play to the strengths of your gun and understand the strengths and the weaknesses of your gun. If you're using an AK-12, you probably shouldn't be challenging people right up close. Similarly, if you're using an SMG, you don't want to be challenging people from across the map. Play to the strengths of your gun. So if you want to have one of your gameplays analyzed for a future episode of this series, make sure you send a link to an unlisted YouTube video to the email address that I will leave below in the description. And also keep in mind I'm looking for at least 720p in quality, and I also prefer gameplays that are kind of average to below average, gameplays where there are some mistakes that I can analyze and share with people. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.